Hi everybody, I'm Luke from the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember to thumb up the video, consider subscribing to the channel or the Patreon, but most of all, when I talk about these games here, get some comments down below and let me know your thoughts about them. So I got my iPad here for the next batch of 10 and we got 3 new games on the list, mostly a bunch of droppers, and one that seems to have climbed even though I'm not entirely certain why it's climbed. Thanks for the kind feedback about the other 2 videos I've done. I think this quicker format's doing a good job for this top 100, and yes, the transitions are going to stay. I'll just try not to make them quite as loud and bombastic as before. Like I say, gotta keep things going consistent, otherwise it looks weird. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with it.
Get on with it.
Alright, my number 80 is the weird one. This one has climbed 8 places and I'm kind of surprised by that because it's been a while since I've played it. I have to run it with a timer in order to make it go smoothly, and yeah, why has this climbed? I'm not entirely certain. This is kind of a freak show in this section of 10. But it's still a great game, and I still really enjoy playing it, and that is Sheriff of Nottingham, the classic, like, I've got my bags, I've got my food and bread and chickens and whatever, and I'm trying to sneak it past the sheriff's site. I don't trust you, I'm going to open up your bag. Oh, unless you want to give me a bribe, you know, that'd be lovely. You know, it's that great banter game that's just great for, like, a good party setting. Now, I kind of want to cap the player count a little bit. 5 players takes a while, it's got to be said, although it's kind of odd. When you have 3 players, you go around twice, and that's not too bad. But then when you have 4 players, it wants you to go around twice. But then with 5 players, you only have to go around once. So you technically spend longer round-wise in a 4-player game than you do in a 5. It's kind of odd. But I still enjoy this game. It's been a while since I've got it out. So this is why I'm kind of shocked it's risen. Because I kind of think, maybe this should actually have not necessarily dropped off my top 100, but maybe fallen a little bit down. So it's kind of odd. But when I was doing the comparisons, I was thinking, you know, I still like this game. It's like, I don't get it to the table as often as I would like, but when I do, I have a blast. And I usually, because I enforce the timer. You've got to have a timer for that sheriff phase, otherwise it just drags on and on and on. The game needs to be quick and snappy, and that's the way it should work. Alright, so something a little bit more new here. We've got the first new of 3 games on this list. And funny enough, it's still Arcane Wonders. We're still on an Arcane Wonders route here. This game I've actually had on my shelf of shame for a long time. Seriously, it's like, come on, Luke, hurry up and get this played. But I just kind of delayed it. I mean, the first time I played it was at Essen, where I played a 4-player demo of the game. I think I played the full game, and I like it? Question mark? The problem was it was spoiled by the fact that I had some woman there in the game who I swear is the slowest player I have ever come across, and believe me, I've come across some belters in my time.
Do something! Do something!
This is like a very simple tableau builder, and this woman was literally taking about an hour per turn, it felt like. Oh my god, so much for the 45-minute timer on Aquatica, but that blemish aside, when I got the game myself and finally got it out and played it with, you know, fellow gamers, brilliant. It's a cool, great game. The artwork is not as awesome as I would like it to be compared to something like Abyss, for example, but I do really like this combo-ific like card game where you grab characters, you play them for their effects, but what you're doing is acquiring locations and putting them underneath your dual layer board, where essentially you get to, like, you tuck the location, but then you slide it down as you explore the depths, and they create little combos for you. Like, they generate actions, or they give you more resources in order to get more locations.
Look at me! I'm Dr. Zoidberg, homeowner!
And it's all about manipulating these little locations in your board to try and create these power turns. The expansion called Waters really does a good job of improving that kind of dull and boring goal endgame condition and replacing it with the tribes, which are a bit more interesting in that they give you special abilities or some endgame scoring conditions, and then you got more cards on top. It's a cool game. The rulebook could be a lot better, and that does hurt the game somewhat, but as I've played it a bit more lately, it has become one that I do enjoy playing. I don't see this really rising further up the top 100 though. I think this is going to be its peak and it's going to like stay in the bottom 20. But as I say, we're on to games here where it's a mixture of 8 and 9 out of 10s, mostly 9 out of 10s. I still really like this game. It just has a few little blemishes that stop it being outstanding. But yep, new to the list, Aquatica. And for my number 78, we're going to go to GMT Games.
What?
wait a minute, GMT games? Yeah, most people would think that I am probably like pulling your leg here. No, this is a legit GMT game that I do really like, even though I don't like a lot of GMT's other games. This is the sequel to a very popular Euro game that's vindictive as all get out and aggressive, but as much as I give that one a little bit of credit, there are things that I don't like about it. Whereas Dominant Species Marine, I think, fixes a lot of that stuff for me. And there's going to be debates until the end of time as to whether Dominant Species is better or Dominant Species Marine is better. For me, I prefer Marine. And here's why. The idea with this is that you're basically taking control of like a race of creatures, and you're really aggressively area controlling these hexes of different terrain in order to survive, get food, like breed more, and eventually score victory points by various cards that come out through the game. It's definitely in your face. But Dominant Species had a system where you pre-programmed all the actions you were doing, and then they all resolved in a particular order. I didn't like that mechanic though, because it meant that you could have times where outside of your control, somebody comes along, messes up your programming, and then you've just wasted the last half hour of the game programming wasteful actions.
So you get nothing!
Marine, on the other hand, treats it like a worker placement action selection game where you place your pawn down and you immediately do the action. But then you can't go any further behind the pawn, you have to go further down the chart. And so that, I think, just works better because it makes the turns a little bit quicker, a little bit more snappy, but there's still the massive meatiness and like really rich theme that is generated with marine creatures rather than the ground creatures as was before. If there's a slight flaw with this game, it's that the card system needs a little bit of tweaking. It can get quite swingy if a really good card flips over when somebody is just about to take their turn. If anybody has a variant or some house rule that can solve that, I'd like to know, because that could elevate the game from a 9 to the 10 at this point. But Dominant Species Marine is still a Euro I really enjoy. It's just not going to hit the table as much because of how meaty, aggressive, and sort of big it is. Right, not a new game this time. Number 77 is down 11 places from 66. This is another Mind Clash game. I talked about to carry on much further down the list. This is one that I still give a lot of props to, even though it's probably the least popular from their range, certainly from a lot of players' perspectives, and that is Cerebria, the Inside World, or as I like to call it, Inside Out, the heavy Euro game.
So that's how you want to play it, old man? No dessert?
You basically have a 2v2 or 1v1 team setup where one side is the positive emotions like love and delight and everything, and one person is the hateful emotions like sorrow and sadness. And basically it's partially area control, but it's also partially like card play and effects, where basically you're vying to build this little structure in the middle of the board, and in doing so you have to control the different sort of dreamscape areas that give you a special bonus but also allow you to get more emotion cards which you place down in order to like generate like power for area control or special abilities. Not to mention your boards have got a smorgasbord of ways you can customize your characters. It's a unique system though on the idea that you have this team versus team thing. If you've got 2v2, then each of you can kind of discuss between you. It's like, well, if I can go there, you can do this, and then we can set that up. Of course, they are aware you're discussing this, so it's not like it's hidden communication, so you don't want to give away too much information, but you also don't want to completely be too cryptic. It kind of gives me that Euro sense with a co-op feel, because you are cooperating with the player next to you with a goal to beat the enemy. The games can be long, they can be short, it really does depend on how the game plays out. If you want to go really advanced, you throw in the expansion that throws in the balance faction. I played it once in a free player game where it was love and hate and balance, like one of the three, and yeah, balance is an interesting faction. Definitely a bit more fiddly to pilot, and certainly does require the other two to gang up on it every now and again. And if they're not aware of that, the balance faction is just going to run away with it. But this one has gorgeous miniatures. It's a great system. I really do enjoy this one, but it's not a favourite among many because of the whole team versus team aspect. Most people would talk about Anachrony and Jacarion, whereas I give a decent amount of props to Cerebria, but yeah, trying to find people to play it with is tricky, with the exception of 1 or 2 people I know locally who will play it if I ask them to. My number 76 has dropped 3 places, whoop-de-doo. It's pretty stable. It would go higher if I could get this played more often, or if it had a solo mode, because the problem with Star Wars Rebellion is that when do I ever get it played? It's a 2-player only game. Forget the whole 4-player shared resources nonsense. It's a 2-player game, Empire versus the Rebellion. And it's a fantastic Star Wars in a box game where you are essentially, like, the rebels have got to do hit and run tactics while keeping their rebel base hidden from the Empire. The Empire has all the forces, all the AT-ATs and all the TIE fighters and everything, and they're going around trying to look for the rebel base and eventually blow it up.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir!
They can build a Death Star and go blow up planets. They can subjugate places, and the Rebellion's trying to generate more support for itself. And you use these mission cards. You've now got a cinematic sort of card combat system with the expansion. I really do love this game. The reason it's not higher on the list though is because it's 2-player only. I rarely get it played, and when I do get it played, I have to reteach myself every single rule in the game because it's been so long since I last played it. It's kind of like that awesome experience that you only get to experience every now and again in a blue moon, and by the time you experience it again, you've forgotten what it was you loved about it the previous time. It's kind of like this annoying, like, stalemate situation where it's constantly hanging around this part of the top 100 and it can't go any lower because I remember that I do really like it, but then it can't go any higher because I can't play it often enough. If this came out with a little expansion that allowed you to play it solo,
Nobody wants to play with me.
or shorten the time frame, that would be absolutely amazing. I would love to try something like that. But that being said, Star Wars Rebellion, Star Wars in a box. You want to play through the first 3 movies and a bit of Rogue One with the expansion? This is the way you go about doing it, with maybe one exception. My number 75, it's only dropped 6 places from 69, and I'm expecting the sequel to this game anytime now, actually. At least I hope so, because I noticed they were selling it at Gen Con. But this is In the Hall of the Mountain King. I was kind of avoiding it for a while. I was like, I'm not that fast, and maybe I'll try it, I'm not sure, but viewers were constantly saying, like, you've got to try this, Luke, you'll enjoy it. And every time I did top 10 lists or other like discussion topics, In the Hall of the Mountain King would keep popping up. So it's like, fine, I'll try it. Shut up already. Nah, I never say that, but you know, you get what I'm saying. It's like, fine, I'll try it. I'll take your word for it. I played it, and you're right. It was a really good game. I mean, it's on my top 100 for like several years on the trot. This game has you building tunnels through this map where you can pick up like various loot and that as you go along. You're trying to move statues to like closer to this volcano center for more victory points. But the crux of this is mainly down to a couple of things that I really like. Firstly is the resource management system it has. You're building this little pyramid of troll cards, and each one gives you resources, but every time you place another troll, you get the resources of that card and the ones that are below it in the pyramid. But you can't store more than the troll stores. You have to get them into your loot box, otherwise you're wasting it. It's very tight in terms of resources, and that's an interesting prospect. But I also like the idea that you've got these spell cards on the side where every player could potentially trigger them, but once they get triggered 3 times, they go away. So there's a little bit of that kind of interaction with other players in the sense of you're getting each other's way on that grid board, but then you're thinking, I really ought to use that spell, but, oh wait a minute, you've used it. You're about to use it. Oh, wait, I'm only going to get 1 use out of it? I better use it now then, otherwise it's gone. And they just add a nice little bit of variety to the game. I'm looking forward to the new Fall of the Mountain King, which I think I previewed, I previewed the Kickstarter I think a year or 2 ago, and I look forward to getting my full copy and giving that a proper review. But also I ordered the Kickstarter upgrades for the In the Hall of the Mountain King, so I'm going to make my copy in the other room look nice and blinged. That'd be nice. But yeah, this one was essentially because of the fans. The fans recommended this game and the fans were right. In the Hall of the Mountain King is still going strong in my top 100. My number 74 is going down, down, down. What the, I mean, that sounds really bad. It's dropped 20 places from 54. It used to be really high. I swear it was even a top 10 game at one point, but I don't play this one as often as I used to. I've got everything in the other room in a box similar to this kind of setup, but I've just never seen the need to bring it out on top of other co-op games, and I think that's possibly because other co-op games are supplanting it, or I'm playing more of the heavier stuff, but Flashpoint Fire Rescue is still an excellent co-op game. It's just not hitting the table anywhere near as often as it used to. And I got a little bit of history with this because Flashpoint Fire Rescue was the first game I ever reviewed. The first time when I did a written blog in the past with the Broken Meeple, it was the first game I ever did. Flashpoint Fire Rescue. I think it might have been one of the first games I bought from my collection. I just thought, let's start with this. And I loved it, and I still love it. I still think it's a 9 out of 10 game. You know, it used to be a 10, it's probably dropped a little bit, but I still enjoy this one because it's thematically sound in terms of the idea that you've got the firefighters trying to put out the fire, and it spreads, and it could start off really small, and it's like, oh yeah, it's okay, we got it under control, and then kaboom! It's like insane, and everything goes on fire, and you can't control it, and then you got to try and save the cat, but do I save the cat or the little girl, or do I save the adult lady? I don't know. But the cat, I want to save the kitty. It's like, you just get into a lot of silly little conversations. Yeah, it's a bit random. You're rolling the dice to see where the fire goes, but doy, it's fire. It's not like you can easily predict what it's going to do.
Ow! Fire hot!
The prophecy will help.
Fire is chaos, basically. It's kind of like that. But yeah, the theme is done really well. The expansion's kind of added a little bit too much bloat, and maybe that's part of the reason why I haven't brought it out as much. You do get into some very fiddly rules as you incorporate some of their mechanics, but I do like the new maps that they bring out. They're really cool. But yeah, even if you just got the base set of Flashpoint Fire Rescue, it's a very simple co-op, and it has a family variant as well if you want to play it in an ultra simple fashion. It's still a really good game to this day, but no one ever plays it, and even I haven't played it for a while, which is why it's dropping. But I think it's not going to fall off the top 100. I like it too much for that. Okay, for my number 73, we have another new game, and well, I bet you didn't see this one coming. Oh boy, yes, Osprey Games are really actually starting to win me over a little bit. They do put out some interesting little quirky games now and again, and I've been trying a few more of them, including some older stuff, and I've been going, nice stuff, you know what, I want to try more. And so when this one came out, I was like, really? Area control with trick taking? How's this supposed to work? But as you might know, if you've been paying attention to my channel, trick taking has been something I've been going mad about lately. So I figured I'd give Brian Boru, High King of, I hope that's how you pronounce it, Brian Boru, High King of Ireland a try.
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
And it has won me over. It may not be the best looking game in the world. I mean, the board's not bad. The board's nice and clean and static. But yeah, you look at the artwork on the box, it's not exactly much to sing home about. But, you know, the cards are okay. But the main thing with this is that I was just thinking, how am I going to get area control to work with trick taking? How does this work? And we've had stuff, well, I can't spoil, but we've had other games that combine trick taking with all sorts of other weird stuff. But in this game, you're essentially, as I say, controlling different territories in Ireland for victory points, and there's diversification as well as being like holed up in one area. Both are decent, but you've also got these little side things around the side of the board which you've got to pay attention to as well. You got to defend from the Vikings. You'll get glory if you do it well, but if you don't do it at all, you're going to get your territories nicked. You've also got a marriage track to level up. You know, do you want to go marry this lady? Well, if you do, then you might get a bonus for it. You know, maybe get a little dowry or two. But then you've also got the monastery. It's like, well, that allows me to go first in the card order, but then it also allows me to better protect my areas and get more points. So you're looking at these little mini challenges, and they're all useful, and you can't do them all, but you kind of got to do some every now and again. It's a really tough decision-making process. But what I really enjoy is that trick-taking element. You play these cards of 3 different colors as well as a wild, numbered from I think like 1 or 2 to 26, something like that. And the idea is that when you play a card, you don't have to follow suit, but you won't win the trick if you don't follow suit. So highest number wins as normal. But what happens is if you win the trick, you take the action at the top, which usually means controlling this area on the board, but maybe getting a lesser action. But then if you deliberately put yourself in a situation where you lose the trick, you do one of the 2 bottom actions. You might on purpose lose the trick in order to do one of those bottom actions, and depending on how high or low the card number is, the actions get better or worse. It's very easy to win with a high value card, so the action you get at the top for winning is not particularly great. But if you were to lose with said card, it's pretty powerful, pretty potent in its own regard. So, and the same works in the opposite direction. I just found this to be a really clever game. Could it have a better rulebook? Yes. Osprey Games, I love you, but seriously, get a rulebook editor. You need one. It's, you know, other than that blemish aside, I found Brian Board to be a big surprise. One of those big exceptions to the rule where I'd normally look at this theme and this kind of styling and I think, yeah, why do I really want to go near this? But I guess I'm just becoming a trick-taking fan. You know what? I need to look up more trick-taking games. And yet, I should really grab a copy of that. I remember that being pretty cool. So yeah, like I say, this is just an instant weird surprise for me. It's already like got into the 70s in my top 100. Will it go higher or lower? I honestly have no idea. For my number 72, we have dropped 20 places from 52, and I don't know why it's even dropped, to be honest. I guess there's just only so many games. Once you start getting to 9 out of 10 rated games, there's a lot of them they've got to squeeze on somehow. I already mentioned Dixit a while ago. I love this card system where it's the Tim Burton on crack style artwork, as I call it, and you've got to kind of look in the picture and see the hidden meaning. I really enjoy this system. This is Obscurio. This is the traitor mechanic version. So with this one, you're kind of like in Harry Potter's library, I guess. It's Hogwarts library, you might as well call it that. A magic book wants out, and you're trying to use, the book is trying to help you get out. The problem is, one of you in the group doesn't want to get out. They're a bookworm, they're a complete nerd. They want to stay here, read books for all eternity. It's not me, I promise. At least it wouldn't normally be me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they put a whole library full of Marvel comics that I've never read, you know, that'd be quite cool. But with this one, it's a great system where the book, again, can't talk, and they show you two pictures, and you point these little butterfly markers to point at various aspects of said pictures. A bunch of random ones are thrown in, as well as the correct answer, but the traitor gets to cherry pick a couple of pictures where they're thinking, yeah, I reckon that's going to throw them off, and I reckon that's going to throw them off. They all get mixed, and then the players have to vote on which one they think it is. If they get it right, they progress, but the more wrong answers that they have, the more of these tokens are eroded away, and if you lose, the more you lose the game. It's a really clever little system, but it's a very easy one to do. In fact, this has killed Shadows over Camelot for me. I like that game, it was cool, but Obscurio is basically Shadows over Camelot with art cards, and frankly, I think it's done better and smoother. But it's great that eventually you are forced to, you know, unless you've done extremely well, in which case the traitor is really taking a break here, you eventually have to figure out who the traitor is. And if you can't figure it out, you're going to lose the game there and then because all your tokens will run out. But it's that great sort of climactic tension where throughout the game you're trying to figure out who is not on our side here. And then you get to that moment and it's like, right, pause the timer. Who are you? Who are you? Whose side are you on, man? And it just, oh, such great banter, such great production. I think from like the art is great, the book is cool, and it's just a cool concept. The idea that you could make this with a traitor mechanic. So yeah, I mean, it has dropped 20 places. I think it's just because I've played certain other games with this genre a little bit more, but it's still a fantastic game. I can't see this dropping any lower, frankly, because I remember playing it in London recently with some friends of mine, and whoo-hoo-wee, that was a little heated, yes. A lot of fingers being pointed at me, and I wasn't even the imposter. The person who was, though, yeah, A+ to them. They deserved their win because they managed to fool everybody. They did a great job. So Obscurio, still definitely one to look at if you're a fan of Shadows or you like this whole art card system. And so my 71, dropping 14 places from 57. Not a big deal, I just haven't played it as much lately, but I still really give props to this solo game, which really did take the year by storm, really. I mean, this was the year of Czech game editions, and frankly, the way this year is going, it could be the year of Czech game editions again. Have you seen the 2 games they're going to bring to Essen? Ooh-wee, they're going to be popular. But this was one of their big popular games from the previous year, which was Under Falling Skies. Under Falling Skies is a solo dice game, which is basically Space Invaders, the board game.
Increase speed, drop down, and reverse direction.
With this one, you have this clever little dice game where you've got these locations and you're trying to use them to like shoot lasers up in the sky and do research in order to beat the aliens. But all the while, the mothership is creeping down and sending ships in various like columns down, you know, pretty much Space Invader style to stop you. And what you're doing is you're using the dice and manipulating them in such a way in order to like use the locations as efficiently as you can, but you're also trying to dig out the rest of your base because there's better locations down there. It's a really clever system. There's a decent amount of dice mitigation. Every time you roll those dice, you are there racking your brains going, how do I do this? How do I do this? If you want more proof, go check out the umpteen amount of playthroughs that this has had on Paul Grogan's Gaming Rules channel. In fact, I even did one, I think, with Polyhedron Collider. Two of us, basically worked together to do a game of it. And it was great fun. I mean, you can have two of you work together to try and do it. If you don't want to play it solo, it works fine. It's just two of you discussing what to do. But yeah, it's not a big box. It has a little mini campaign in it, which adds extra bits, extra content. For what you get in the box, it's pretty good value and just a very clever dice game. It felt like it did something very different and it works really well with the theme it took. So yeah, Under Falling Skies is still a hit for me, just not quite top 50, it's more top 70, whatever. As if it matters. It's a 9 out of 10, I still think it's amazing. So that's Under Falling Skies at 71. So yeah, my 80 through to 71. The next batch of 10 aren't new games. They're all ones you've seen before, but are they movers and shakers or are they stable? Well, that you're going to have to wait and see. That's it for me though on this episode of the Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and if you like what you see, please remember to thumb up the video, consider subscribing to the channel, possibly even the Patreon, but most of all, hit those comments down below. Let me know your thoughts about these 10 games. Should they be higher? Should they be lower? What are your thoughts? Do you love them or hate them? I want to hear both sides of the story. Until next time, you can either rewind back to the start of the top 100 that I have been working through, as you can see, or you can check out the last video / rant that I did on my Kickstarter series, which is taken off with a bang. Thank you for the lovely comments on that. And you can check out my August edition of that. Take care, and remember as always, they're still only games. Bye for now, everyone.